I'm sure most of you have lived through the 90s and the terrible clothing style of the 90s. The 90s clothing style was far different from the 80s clothing and far different from today's clothing. In the 90s, it was very minimal. Your clothing didn't define you. You know, you just lived life, and clothing wasn't who you were. It didn't make you. And I feel like in today's time, clothing is what makes you popular. If you don't have the top trends, then you're not popular. Even kids today in elementary school are stressing out about having the top name brand clothing because other kids have it. And I feel like in the 90s, we didn't do that. You know, we all loved each other. We didn't care who had what. Um, it was just very minimal in the 90s. Some clothing styles of the 90s for kids. Um, Little boys always wore the baggy jeans and the big poofy windbreakers and the high top sneakers with the high top socks and that you could scrunch down. And little girls and overalls were also a thing for boys too as well. And little girls, they would wear the overalls, even the shorts overalls. And most of the time it was Guess brand. You thought you were really cool if you had Guess brand. And the little girls would either take either side and undo it and let it hang, and that was just the style in the 90s. Another thing was windbreakers. I already said, you know, little boys wore the big poofy windbreakers, and little girls did the same, and they were always colorful most of the time. And another thing for little girls was the jelly shoes. Every little girl that I remember had a pair of jelly shoes, and you thought that you were so cool if you had jelly shoes. And even the little, I think they still make them in the princess dress up section, the little jelly shoes that are like high heels. You thought you were something if you had a pair of high heel jelly shoes. And socks for the girls too. They were really tall. You could scrunch them down, and that was just the look. A thing for women were the denim skirts that were high top, like, you know, high waisted. Um, and an extra to those were if you had a denim skirt with the buttons that went all the way down in front of the skirt. And also the high waisted baggy shorts. They could be printed, they could be denim. Um, a vest that went over their shirts, just a, you know, solid color vest, the short vest. Um, Keds were a big thing for women and teen girls. Scrunchy hair bows. I know everybody had a scrunchy hair bow, the big scrunchies, and if it wasn't in your hair, you always had one on your wrist. Another thing was bell bottom jeans. I know every girl went through it, especially like 14, 15, 16-year-old girls. You always had a pair of bell bottom jeans. The bigger at the bottom, the better. I remember a point where they like covered your whole foot. You couldn't even see your shoe, and that was just the style. I think for men, they also did the baggy jeans like the little boys, you know, really wide at the top of the thigh, and they were wide all the way down, and just like the women, they covered the entire shoe, and that was just what was in. They also wore the big, colorful windbreakers, also the high top sneakers for men. They also wore vests over solid color t-shirts, and that was considered dressing up, dressing nice for them. Another way of dressing up for men was they would wear a solid color t-shirt with a blazer over it, and that was their dressing fancy, so to speak. Dressing in the 90s was just very minimal. It wasn't like compared to the 80s or today's time. It's just very minimal. It just didn't define you as who you were or who, you know, what you had. That just wasn't a problem then. But there's the 90s clothing for you. Thank you.